I know we're not telling you anything that you don't know back in the Delaware Valley, but it is hot here in D.C. as the Phils get set for Game 2 against the Washington Nationals. Phillies fans filing in for this weekend series that started yesterday with a nice victory. Plenty of time to get your photo taken with Teddy Roosevelt and the rest of the presidents here at Nationals Park. Hi, everybody. I'm Tom McCarthy along with Matt Stairs. So we get set for Jake Thompson facing the Nationals for the second time in 11 days against Tanner Roark, who has dominated the Phillies here in 2016. Let's first talk about Jake Thompson. He's adjusted his motion, and he has been much better. Even though he hasn't won, he's been much better his last 2 games.
Well, he has, and really, it looks like he feels at home right now. He's slowed his delivery down. He's not going over top of his head anymore. He's staying more compact. But really, I think the most important thing with Jake Thompson is his cutter. We talk about Asher's sinker and Morgan's sinker. Well, this is a man right here who found a pretty good cutter. First 4 innings, he didn't throw it 1 time, but now all of a sudden the last 2 starts, he's thrown it 50 times, and really it just opens up the plate with that good changeup he has. He has a late movement changeup, which just goes away from the right-handers and the lefties as well, but he has the ability to throw that fastball inside to keep hitters off as well. This game here, he was very good down in the zone, getting ground ball after ground ball, which is nice, great tempo. So I like this, the fact that he's going up there and he's challenging the hitters. Now Tanner Roark, who's pitched very well this year in 4 starts. This is a guy that wants to throw that curveball and drop it off in the back of the plate. He's very aggressive with his fastball as well. He kind of lulls you to sleep a little bit. He has a nice, easy delivery. You think it's going to be nice to soft, but he gets it up to about 92, 93. Very smart pitcher, and he has very good defense behind him.
All right, so this is one of those outings that we talked about against the Phillies where his off-speed pitches, his secondary pitches, were flat-out dominant, but then he can go back with that fastball. So look at his numbers compared to what Thompson's done his last 2 starts, what Roark's done in his 4 starts against the Phillies. They're hitting just a .176, 0.64. Not many guys in the National League this year have been better against the Phillies than Tanner Roark. He's allowed just 16 hits in 28 innings, so Phillies face him for the 5th time. Maybe they can figure something out offensively. They certainly did last night with a 4-1 victory, and Ryan Howard was a big part of it. He got that off-speed pitch, and he was able to drive it out of the ballpark to center field. He's back in the lineup in the number 4 spot. Lineups at first pitch when we return. Phillies baseball is brought to you by Xfinity. Xfinity X1 will change the way you experience TV. By Toyota. Tested, trusted, Toyota. Toyota, let's go places. By Citizens Bank. The next time you have a question about money, don't keep it to yourself. Ask a citizen. And by Independence Blue Cross. Live fearless. Learn more at IBX.com. Hernandez is ready to dig in. Tanner Roark has finished up his warm-up tosses, so here we go. And the first pitch of the night is taken up high, so we're underway. 1 ball, no strikes. Cesar was 1 for 4 last night with a run scored. Tanner Roark 14-8, a 2.89 ERA. He's not going to strike a whole lot of guys out. 142 and 180 and a third. But man, has he had a good year for the Nationals. On the inside corner, 1-2.
Well, take a look at the scouting report. He is a 4-pitch pitcher. He will use them all the time. The number not on that scouting report is he loves to throw one side. He's got 12 hits batsmen this year.
Yeah, he's not. He doesn't care. You know, he's totally fine with hitting guys. 2 balls and 2 strikes. On the inside corner, and Hernandez is down looking. He didn't take the bat off his shoulder. So 1 away here in the first. The rest of the Phillies lineup brought to you by Xfinity. Xfinity X1 will change the way you experience TV. Blanco plays again for Maikel Franco, who's getting closer, but is probably out even tomorrow. Ryan Howard starts for the 2nd straight night. Tyler Goodell starts in left field for Aaron Altair. Odubel Herrera will be the hitter. He was 0 for 4 last night with a strikeout. Hitting .276 with 13 home runs, 42 runs batted in. And he hits that one in the air to right center field, and nobody's going to get that. It's going to go to the scoreboard off the base of the wall. And that's one of the better balls that Odubel's hit in the last couple weeks. So he has a 1-out double.
That was one of the better swings, and why? Is because the ball was down in the zone. That's a good leg kick. It still uses lower half a little better, but it's a start. Whenever you can drive a ball that far, right center, left center, means you're going through it, staying through it.
That kind of looks like what his batting practices have looked like in the last few days. Andres Blanco is starting again at third base after going 1 for 3 with a run scored in last night's game. And he was thinking fastball out of the chute. Odubel's going to third as Ramos drops the baseball, and he is out at third base.
I thought it was a foul ball.
I thought it was a foul ball as well. Odubel's staying at third base. He thinks he was safe. He did not react right away, Matt. He saw the ball got loose, and then he took off. Ramos made a nice throw after recovering.
Yeah, he hesitated. Plus, he didn't have that great of a secondary.
Yeah, he's out.
Yep.
If you're going to do it, you got to make it, as they always say. Pete said, I've never had a problem with getting thrown out being overly aggressive, but that was just a bad decision. Fastball low. 1 ball, 1 strike. I think you're right, though, Matt. If he had a better secondary lead, and if he had reacted right away, he probably would have been safe at third. 1-2. I told Andres today, I said, hey, listen, Wilson Ramos is much bigger than Jose Lobaton, so don't hit him in the helmet with your backswing. He hit Lobaton twice last night. He said he was he's squatting so close to the plate. Remains 1-2. Said he finally did tell him, he said, hey, you got to move back.
That first time last night got him pretty good.
Yeah, he did. Swing and a miss. He gets him with a high fastball. 2 strikeouts in the inning for Roark. So he allows the double, but then Herrera's thrown out at third, middle of the first. It's the Phillies nothing. Nationals coming up, and Jake Thompson going to work. You Experience TV. Trey Turner leads it off in center field. He has been very consistent for the Nationals. In fact, today is the 19th game in a row that he has played center field for the Washington Nationals. The only change is that Wilson Ramos is in there catching, and he is batting 6th for Washington against right-hander Jake Thompson, who comes in 1-5 with an ERA of 6.48. He has been better lately, and that is a good sign for the Phillies and their system.
Well, it is. He just looks a lot more comfortable on the mound, throwing strikes, attacking the hitters. And that's the key is to pitch to contact and rely on your defense.
That's certainly what Alec Asher did last night. And Trey Turner takes a bit outside.
Take a look at the scouting report. Sits right around 91, 92. He's a 5-pitch pitcher, but only uses a curveball 2.1% of the time.
Off-speed pitch? No?
Sinker.
Yeah, sinker. Same action as his off-speed pitch, but of course 89 miles an hour. Turner hitting .344 in the year. And at a play down the right field line. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Turner was 1 for 4 last night with a double, his 12th double of the year. And that's in a very short period of time. Thinking about it today, Trey Turner was acquired by the Nationals along with Joe Ross for Steven Souza Jr. I mean, no offense to Steven Souza Jr., but this guy and Joe Ross are going to be big parts of their franchise moving forward for a long time.
Yes, they are.
To second base. You saw he doesn't strike out all that much, and he's thrown out 4-3 on the putout. So Thompson this season 50% fastball, 21% slider, and then the split. But Matt, you talked about the cut fastball and how that's really increased over the last couple of starts.
I do. I like the cut fastball. I think it just keeps all the hitters very honest. And we talk about how important it is for Asher and Morgan to throw sinkers. Well, I think this cutter has been a tremendous pitch for him.
See Jason's numbers, hitting .223 against right-handers. .253 overall. First pitch inside, 1 ball, no strikes. Worth was 0 for 2 last night. He did walk twice.
That's a little cutter right there.
Two balls and 1 strike to Jason Worth. Thompson a couple starts ago changed his motion, which we talked about. He used to be over the top with both of his hands. Now he stops right at his chin. As Worth fouls it over the screen, 2 balls and 2 strikes.
You know, and Tom, I think there's a few things that has helped him over his last 2 outings. One, the hands over the head. You know, it keeps his body quiet now. He doesn't fly open as much. But I'm going to go back to this cutter. All right, his first 4 starts, 0 cutters. His last 2 starts, very good slider right there. His last 2 starts, he's thrown 50 cutters. And how were his numbers the last 2 starts?
Excellent.
So it's just one of those things when you're throwing a good cutter to a right-hander, and so if you don't have a cutter and a right-hander thinks, okay, well, fastball's going to tail on towards me, slider goes away. So if I sit fastball inside, I can go out and dive after a slider. It's just the cutter is just tremendous to keep the hitters off balance, especially left-handers.
Well, here is one of the left-handers, Daniel Murphy, who takes on the inside corner. He did not think that was a strike. It looked like a pretty good pitch, but he'll complain about just about every pitch.
Yeah.
Overall hitting .345 with 25 home runs, 101 RBIs.
A cutter will only break about 6 or 7 inches.
But it's kind of what you said about Asher last night. It breaks enough that it's not in the middle of the barrel.
It goes away from the barrel. So versus a left-hander, when you throw a cutter, you don't throw a cutter for a strike, or you don't throw it down. You throw it belt high. You start it on the inside corner, and the thought process is that, okay, it's a fastball coming in. Last second, it has that 6 inches movement, and it blows your bat up. You know, it's such a great weapon to have versus lefties. You can throw the backdoor cutter. You can throw the front door cutter to a right-hander.
Grounded foul off the tarp. Larry Vanover's the crew chief behind the plate tonight. Paul Emmel had the plate last night. He's over at third. Chris Guccione at second and David Rackley around at first.
Watch the location. If he tries to hit this ball up the middle, he's going to jam himself. So the only thing you can do is pull it foul.
That one's out toward left center field. A long run for Odubel Herrera. So the off-speed pitch produces the final out here in the first inning. 1, 2, 3 go the Nationals. We have completed one. We'll head to the second. Blue Cross. They're part of a national system of Blue Cross and Blue Shield plans that cover more than 100 million members across the country. Live fearless. Learn more at ibx.com/biz. Ryan Howard, who homered last night, leads it off against Roark. And it's no balls in one strike. Howard hitting 195 with 21 home runs, 49 runs batted in. That home run for Howard moved the Phillies' first baseman into a tie with the Cleveland Indians for the most home runs by first baseman collectively in Major League Baseball. I know we've been running that stat for the last couple of weeks. Orioles are third. Brewers are tied with Brewers are fourth. And the Tigers, Blue Jays, and Cubs are after that.
I think it's a great stat.
I think it just shows that from a home run standpoint, they're producing.
They are.
Howard fights it off, and it remains 1-2. Ryan Howard with 44 career home runs against the Nationals. He's not going to catch Barry Bonds, but he could catch Andrew Jones. Pulls that one to the right side. Espinosa playing on the right side, throws him out. 6-3 on the putout. And one away. Cameron Rupp's coming up. So how good has Tanner Roark been against the Phillies this year? Well, if you look at the other starters in Major League Baseball that have faced the Phillies a minimum of 2 starts, his ERA is 4th. His win-loss record is tops, but his ERA is 4th. DeGrom, Lester, Williams, Perez, who's been a pain in the neck for the Phillies. That's the one on there that you kind of sit there and scratch your head and say, really? And then Roark at 0.64 and Lackey 0.64. Cameron Rupp waves at the first pitch, 0-1. But Matt, he was 2-5 against the Phillies coming into this year, and now he's 5-5 overall. They've gotten to him before, just not this year. I mean, look at the movement on that pitch right there.
Well, that's a cutter. It's, you know, it's weird. I mean, he moves the pitch. He never throws the same pitch twice in a row. He'll have the big slider, the big curveball, fastball low and away. Doesn't miss the spot.
Well, he is not a strikeout pitcher, as we mentioned, but he has 3 strikeouts so far in this game.
Watch the location. Buffalo doesn't even move his glove.
Freddie Galvis, the batter. Galvis 3 for 10 against Roark with a home run. You know, the interesting thing, Matt, about that graphic that we showed you is that, you know, the Phillies only face the Cubs twice a year, but they get Lester and Lackey. The Mets, I mean, Jacob deGrom, you remember that because he has been dominant against the Phillies. And Perez, for some reason, Williams Perez, with all the soft stuff he throws, has mesmerized the Phillies offense this year. Galvis goes after a high pitch, 4 strikeouts for Roark through the first 2 innings. We're on to the bottom of the second. Bryce Harper's up when we come back.
Our crew.
Monday, we get the Eagles season opener covered from every angle.
Seth Joyner will be joining us in the studio for a unique perspective.
All right, watch us Monday, a new time, 7 a.m. on TCN and streaming live at breakfastonbroad.com.
All right, guys, thanks. We appreciate that. Rob looks like he's going out to play a softball game or something. As we go to the bottom of the second inning, but casual Friday, you pay in, you get to wear whatever you want. There's Alec Asher, who last night 6 innings. 2 hits and no runs, 1 walk, no strikeouts. He got the victory, his first major league win. And Bryce Harper will lead it off here in the second. Harper was 0 for 4 last night with a strikeout. The first pitch on the inside corner, 0-1. Harper hitting .250 on the year with 23 home runs. Last year at this point he was hitting .333 with 34 home runs. A little different story. Strike 3 called on the outside part of the plate. 92-mile-an-hour fastball. Second strikeout for Thompson. Fans didn't like it because it was Harper, but it was a good pitch. Anthony Rendon is coming up. All right, so here's the pitch Jake Thompson just delivered to Harper.
Well, it's supposed to be a high fastball. Doesn't throw it as high, but hits the outside corner. Height-wise, good. Sometimes as a hitter, when you start pulling off a little bit too quick, you'll complain about pitches height-wise or off the plate, because really you never see the ball cross the plate.
Yeah, from our vantage point over top, I know we say this a lot when we're here at Nationals Park, but we could see over the plate pretty good.
See the over the city really good too.
Yeah. Anthony Rendon 0 for 4 last night. That has not been a common occurrence. He's had an excellent second half, hitting .312 with 8 homers and 37 runs batted in. Freddie Galvis puts it away for the second out. All right, let's look back at the first inning and watch the effectiveness of the cutter from Jake Thompson.
Well, this is the fastball, the cutter inside to Murphy. Now watch his lower half, how he explodes to hit that ball. Now all of a sudden you start thinking, okay, cutter again. Now the whole front side goes towards their dugout. And that's what I talk about, being able to open up the plate, because a hitter, especially a left-hander, you're going to cheat in there. Because I don't want to get burnt. I don't want to get my hands busted up. So I need to open up a little bit. Now he hit that ball that far with the awkward swing. Think about if he uses his lower half and drives that ball, it's a home run. But nice job of working the inside corner and throwing a nice changeup blown away.
Yeah, because you got him off just a hair.
Right.
Wilson Ramos was a pinch hitter in last night's ball game. Overall hitting .306 with 20 homers and 73 runs batted in. 1 ball and 1 strike, a changeup.
Backdoor changeup.
Had some movement on it too. First half of the season, Ramos hit .330. I mean, it was a head-turning first half. Second half, not as good. Hitting .269. You see what he's done over his last handful of games. Still very dangerous, though.
It'll be interesting to see going down in the rest of September if he gets more days off. He'll tell you he doesn't want him. He's a big man's a free agent.
Well, I think he's going to get himself a nice contract in the offseason, even if he sits down a little bit in the next few weeks.
I concur. Tried to overthrow that slider.
If he can throw it the same way he threw it to Worth, he'll have a good night. Got him.
There you go.
Toward the outside part of the plate. 3 strikeouts for Jake Thompson. And 6 up, 6 down. So here we go. Look at the movement on this, the late movement on it. And Ramos thought it was in the strike zone, and then voila, it wasn't. question. Log on to Phillies.com. Go to the fans section for all the information. Please submit your answer on the subject line. All right, Matt, the question is, who leads the Nationals in career Grand Slams? I just got a text from Ben, so he was on my mind because you sent him one. Who leads the Nationals in career Grand Slams? As Peter Borges leads it off. Answer will be revealed a little later on. One ball and one strike to Borges. Borges 252 on the year. He was 1 for 4 with that home run last night. Ryan Howard's home run was the spotlighted shot because it was a 3-run bomb. But man, Borges' shot was a bomb too.
Crushed off the foul pole.
Came against A.J. Cole. Won 5 innings last night. Starters for the Nationals. Last 3 nights, Gio went 3, Strasburg went 2, Cole went 5. Probably could have gone more. The hands will stay alive. It remains 3-2. Tapper in front of the plate. Roark has to barehand it. At least he felt like he did because Borges was moving up the line. And 1 out. Tyler Goodell's coming up. One thing that Tyler Goodell has been able to do as a pinch hitter is work the count and work out some walks. Now, he doesn't play all that often, but Pete McCann and Murph would love to see his team try to walk a little bit more to get the offense going.
It's one of the things that Pete has been talking to his guys about late in this season. He wants to see them being a little bit more selective at the plate. He said, in fact, the lack of walks for the Phillies is, in his words, an issue right now. He doesn't have anybody that's really working the count. Take a look at what the other teams in the league are doing. The Cubs, 560 walks. The Brewers, 538. Blue Jays, Astros, Giants. 4 out of those 5 teams are in the postseason hunt. The Phillies, 29th in Major League Baseball when it comes to free passes. It's something that he thinks they have to work on as a franchise. You know, it's one of the things that it's not just 1 or 2 guys. The entire team is going to have to buy in. He said you can't often change guys at this level, but it is something he's hoping these guys will think about in the offseason and work on for next year, guys.
Yeah, and he's also talked about through the system them working on it as well. He thinks that it's important for the younger guys to kind of get into that mind frame also. Now, whether that works or not remains to be seen.
Look, I understand they want to work the count. They want to work more walks in. It's tough to compare the Phillies this year to the top 4 or 5 teams that have walked a lot because of power throughout the lineup. So Cesar Hernandez is not going to hurt you with the home run. Even though Odubel Herrera has double digits, he's not going to hurt you with home runs. You know, Franco is the guy that would to me has to start working the count, being more patient. So if you go down the lineup, they're not going to pitch around all the guys because they don't have that power throughout the lineup to hurt you. Now the 08 team and 09 team, they walked a lot. You know, they were 5th in the National League that year with 586 walks. So what's that mean? It means that we have to be careful with the J-Dubs or the Jimmy Rollins or the Ryan Howards or, you know, Chase Utleys or whoever, because they can jump ship in a heartbeat. That's why the numbers where the walks are. And who's last? Atlanta Braves? You know, it's probably a team that doesn't have a lot of power as well.
I can tell you who's last in 1 second, Matt.
I was guessing Atlanta Braves.
No, it 3 balls and 2 strikes.
I think it's the Royals, actually, Matt.
Well,
Well, there you go. Walk. Tyler Goodell walks.
After 0-2 count.
Kansas City Royals are last in Major League Baseball. Phillies are last in the National League.
So with the Royals, they're not a team that hits a lot of home runs either. So they're going to be attacked earlier in the count and make you swing early.
Here's Jake Thompson. Thompson 1 for 7 in his big league career. With one out, he shows bunt, takes high. From an organization standpoint, and I don't know if this is, is an indication of how good they are. J.P. Crawford leads the organization in walks with 72. And even though he's hitting just .250 this year, his on-base percentage is .349. Rhys Hoskins is second. He has 71 walks with an on-base percentage of .377. Now both of those guys, that's ahead of the leader for the Phillies as far as walks go. But again, I don't know if it equates minor leagues to major leagues. The leader for the Phillies is Odubel, who has 59 walks.
If I was thinking about telling the Phillies to think about one thing in the offseason and coming into the spring training is working on pitches seen per at bat. So instead of having 3.1, set the numbers up high to 4, over 4 per at bat. Like J-Dub leads the league. Just that's what you want to do is work the count, because what it does, it gets you back in a hitter's count. And now swing at the first pitch or the second pitch, and we always talk about it. I love being aggressive, especially with the guys in scoring position, as long as you're being aggressive after your strength, the pitch that you want to hit, and not the pitcher's pitch.
Thompson bunts foul, 3-2. Three straight full counts for Tanner Roark. Bills with a runner at first, one man down, top of the third. And he bunts it. That's a good one. Roark has it. He'll make only one play, and that's to first very softly. Sacrifice is successful. 1-4 on the putout. Our cold hard fact is what Matt's talking about. That's pitches per plate appearance. Jason Worth is the leader in Major League Baseball. Mike Napoli, who is having a fantastic year for the Indians, is second overall. And then Trout's on-base percentage is extremely high. Runner at second base, 2 outs. Cesar Hernandez is up. He struck out looking his first time up.
And I think when you talk about walks and stuff, and you talk about guys, working the count, they got to remember too is don't lose your aggressiveness. If you get a pitch to hit, let it fly.
Yeah, particularly in RBI situations.
Right, hit a gapper. Go ahead and swing it.
One ball, one strike to Cesar. On the Toyota Major League scoreboard, Jorge Alfaro set the tone early with a solo home run. And the Reading Fightins are off to a 3-0 lead over the Trenton Thunder in the second inning. Dylan Cousins has a double on that game already. A little home cooking for the Fightins. 2-1 to Cesar. Check swing, ground ball. Phillies lead one in scoring position here in the third. No runs, no hits, one man left after a one-out walk to Tyler Goodell. Middle of the third, Phillies nothing, Nationals nothing. new instant game, Millions in an Instant. Players must be 18 or older. Please play responsibly. Buy McDonald's Mix and Match any 2 for just $2.50 on McDonald's McPick 2 menu. And buy your local Ford stores. Home half of the third, Phillies nothing, Nationals nothing. And for the Nationals, it'll be Ryan Zimmerman, Danny Espinosa, Tanner Roark. You don't think it's hot here in D.C.? Look how hot that guy is. He is sweating. Unseasonably warm in the Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, Northeast. As everybody knows, back in the Delaware Valley. Zimmerman hitting .217 with 14 homers and 41 runs batted in. Thought maybe he would sit tonight and Clint Robinson would play, but Dusty Baker did say the other day that his defense is still excellent, and he said they have to get him going.
They have to.
That ball's hit sharply on one hop to Andres Blanco, who had it played perfectly, one away. Well, Matt, we're in the bottom of the third. I know what they were before the game, so I know you haven't adjusted, but here are your keys to the game. Brought to you by Nissan.
The most important thing for the last 6 2/3 innings of this game. Yeah, Herrera, lower your sights. We saw him his first at bat. Ball down the zone. He crushed that ball to right center. And continue playing good D, which we just saw. They played very good defense yesterday, especially the outfielders. So lower your sights, Senor Herrera, and keep on playing good D.
I think that ball stung Andres Blanco, by the way, over at third. They were just giving him some extra time, as Danny Espinosa will be the batter. Espinosa was 0 for 3 last night. Howard has that one kick off the heel of his glove, and everybody is safe. I want to wind up being Howard's 11th error of the year. Or it could be a base hit for Espinosa. That's what they called it.
The little cutter inside. Surprisingly, Ryan was playing that close to the line.
That's why I thought it was going to be an error. He almost looked like he slid past it.
It almost looked like he closed the glove too early.
Roark squares. He has 5 sacrifice bunts this year.
Throw a high fastball, get him to pop it up.
Well, he bunts it toward the first base side, so just like the Phillies in their half of the third, the Nationals have a runner at second with 2 outs. Sacrifice is successful. Well, the Phillies return home. They're going to take on the Pittsburgh Pirates in a 4-game series. It all starts on Monday at 7:05. Tickets can be purchased by going to Phillies.com. All 4 games are night games. A lot of opportunities for some of the college kids who are back in town to come out to the ballpark. Check out Phillies.com and check out the specials that are on tap for the college students. Here's Trey Turner, grounded out his first time up. Play 1 ball 1 strike.
Not a great place to live with the changeup right there, and up in the zone like that.
Took it to a hot hitter.
Yeah, just the changeup, it's so flat and it's up high in the zone.
Trey Turner, although 2 outs with runners in scoring position, his numbers are low. Since the All-Star break, he has 24 multi-hit games, which is tied for first with Ender Inciarte. 2-2. Got a thinking fastball. He threw something a little softer than that.
A good changeup. 2-1 hitters count. He's going to go back to his best pitch, which has been his changeup over the last 3 games.
Out to right field. Borges comes on, makes the catch. He had to fight the lights a little bit on that. And the Nationals, like the Phillies, leave one at second here in the third. 3 in the books here in Washington, D.C. Documents hand the ball, game ball, over to Fellows, the most trusted name in the game, to get the job done. Delivered for free by who? The W.B. Mason. Top of the 4th inning. Phillies have 1 hit against Tanner Roark. And it'll be Odubel Herrera who has the 1 hit, who will lead it off. This 2016 season is reminiscent of Roark's 2014 year, when he won 15 games and had an ERA of 2.85 in 31 starts. Last year, he was relegated to being a spot starter and being a guy out of the bullpen because they just didn't have a spot for him in the rotation. He made only 12 starts. He was 4-7 with a 4.38 ERA. He's another guy that, he's not a homegrown guy. They got him from the Texas Rangers.
Larry Anderson and I were talking about him earlier. Larry loves his stuff. This is the first time he watched him pitched. Thought he had tremendous stuff. Great control. And like that, doesn't throw the curveball a lot. He can throw every pitch for a strike. Behind the count, head in the count. I would throw the exact same pitch, but this time a little farther inside.
You think he'll swing at it?
Well, he might freeze him.
And he hits him. He did throw it inside. It was not a fastball. And Odubel Herrera is hit by a pitch the second time this year that Roark has hit him. It looks like it must have hit him right in the knee.
It's the second time this road trip, after calling a late timeout, got drilled the next pitch. Not saying that was on purpose, just saying.
Scott Sheridan out from the Phillies dugout to check out Odubel Herrera. Andres Blanco's asking him where he got hit. Take a look at it again. I think he thought he got out of the way and
right below the knee.
Yeah. So he's going to limp up the first base line. Phillies have the leadoff batter aboard for the first time in this game. So Andres Blanco is up. He struck out his first time up. The Lucky McDonald's Phillies home run jackpot contestant is Ron Maurer of Wyomissing. Phillies hit a home run in today's ball game. Ron will win $100. McDonald's mix and match 82 for just $2.50 on McDonald's McPick 2 menu. Pitch is outside. Ooh. Paul Emmel said that Andres offered at that pitch.
Paul Emmel had that right hand going last night. Continues tonight. He didn't swing.
I didn't think he swung either. Well, Roark is a guy that can get the double play ground ball. He has 25 double play ground outs this year. Cardinals are dominating that category. They give somebody else a chance.
Jaime Garcia did dominate last night on getting ground balls.
He did not. That one is swung on and missed.
Well, dead.
Oh, it hit him. Okay, so they're going to say it hit him.
It swung though.
Yeah, but he did swing. And Paul Emmel says he is out because he swung. The ball is dead, so Odubel's got to go back to first. Just a crazy sequence. Phillies would have been better off if it didn't hit Andres Blanco because Odubel would have gotten to second base.
It's the same pitch that hit Odubel. It's been the top of the left knee this time. And I'm sitting there going, how doesn't he see that swing at home plate? But Ramos blocked his view by moving over.
And I think because the ball moved, I think he was just looking at the ball too. Howard grounded out to the right side his first time up. He grounded out to Espinosa on the right side. And he lines that one into right field, a base hit. Herrera hesitated. He wasn't going to go to third anyway. But Ryan Howard has his second hit of this road trip, second hit of the series. The Phillies have runners on first and second with one man down.
That's an out if there's a shift on.
Well, Matt, how about the national starters this year against the Phillies? Leading the way is Roark with a 0.64 earned run average. I was talking to Pete about this today, and he said, I kind of even forgot about Joe Ross, but Ross 2-0 with a 1.66 ERA. Scherzer's 3-0. The only guy that they got to in that one start was Strasburg, and then last night A.J. Cole. But that's how good the national starters have been against the Phillies this year. Camera at Rupp takes low. Cameron struck out his first time up. Max Scherzer charting. He's going to pitch tomorrow. It's not often that you see the pitchers for the other teams, for any team, charting. But Mike Maddox has the Nationals pitchers charting the day before they start, just to get an idea of what the Phillies or whoever the opponent is, what their tendencies are. Most times charting is done through video. Guys just don't have to do it anymore. Minor leagues, they do it. They're sitting behind home plate and they're charting. Big leagues, they do it through video now.
Pay somebody else to do it.
Yeah.
I like it. It keeps you into the game. Makes you pay attention.
Cameron strikes out again. 6 strikeouts for Roark.
Another big slider right here. Cameron's having a hard time picking that spin up on the slider.
Freddie Galvis struck out his only time up. That was back in the second. And he loops one out toward left center field. That's going to drop in for a base hit. Herrera's around third, heading for home. Turner's throw is not in time. An RBI single for Freddie Galvis, and the Phillies strike first and lead it 1-0.
Boy, Freddie, staying aggressive. Runners in scoring position. First pitch sinker out over the plate. I love seeing him hit a ball in that direction instead of rolling over to second base. Ignore that bird that just went in front of the camera, but that's a nice swing. Turner with a strong throw.
Peter Borges hits one through the hole on the left side. Howard will hold up at third as Jason Worth comes up ready to fire. And the bases are now loaded for the Phillies, up 1-0 here in the fourth. And Tyler Goodell is going to be the hitter. Mike Maddox is out to talk to his pitcher.
You know, usually in a situation with Ryan Howard at first base and Odubel Herrera at second base hit to center field with 2 outs. Usually the runner at first base will make the guy cut the ball, and then you get the rundown. Or the old days they used to call a pickle. Right, so, but Ryan Howard knows that Odubel Herrera has good speed. There's no need to keep on going and run to an out.
Yeah, and obviously the throw went through.
Right.
Some base runners would just keep on going.
Yeah.
Ryan obviously doesn't have the speed to do that.
That's why it's so important to watch the ball coming out of the guy who's throwing the ball, the outfielders, what type of arc he has on it. If it's a low throw, that's where you decide, okay, I'm going to go ahead, go to third base, make him get the ball, get a run down long enough to score.
Well, here's Tyler Goodell. He walked his first time up. Inside.
Take that. We got ice.
Yeah.
We used to tell people, take it. We got ice.
Tyler looking for his first hit with the bases loaded this year.
I loved hitting with the bases loaded. The only one time I didn't like it, I was with the Nationals. I pinched hitting against Roy Halladay. He threw me sinker, sinker, sinker. I didn't swing one time.
That was here.
Oh, yeah.
I remember that.
Oh, yeah.
Hate to tell you this, Matt, but I really punched it too in the call.
Well, you should have. You should have done a punch me as well for being an idiot. I mean, 3. They weren't even on the corner. I was sitting
right
cutter
down.
every time. It threw me sinker, sinker, sinker.
2-2 pitch coming to Goodell with the bases loaded. Tyler taps it foul to stay alive.
You gave it a little extra, Tom.
Yeah, we punched it.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
You know, former Phil and everything like that. All-time leader in pitch hit home runs.
Yeah, that was a quality at bat for me that day.
Again, the 2-2 pitch coming to Goodell. Fouls it off again. Tyler chops it back toward the middle, and Espinosa has it. Phillies leave the bases loaded, but they did score a run. The single by that guy, Freddie Galvis. Galvis coming through again for the Phils. For Freddie, it's his 59th RBI. Just dropped in front of Trey Turner in 7. It scored Odubel Herrera. 1-0 Phillies as we go to the bottom of the 4th. You buy Toyota. Visit buyatoyota.com to find your RAV4 today. Toyota, let's go places. Let's go Phils.
You better duck.
Fan hit them with a teddy bear, and then it was a domino. That left the gate wide open for Teddy Roosevelt to take his Teddy and head on home. He's the leader this year, by the way. Teddy is. That's his 20th victory. Championship belt will reign in the Roosevelt household for the next 24 hours. He'll get himself busy, though.
That was one of the better ones.
That was funny. My thing, though, is that Teddy didn't start with everybody else.
No.
Jason Worth leads up. Struck out his first time up. Takes outside, 1-0.
But think about the pressure that fan had to throw that Teddy out
Hit
there.
it right there.
Right in the coconut.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big coconut. There it is.
Look.
2-1 to Jason Worth. Big coconut, big teddy bear.
Got away with the changeup right there. Another one up in the zone. Just don't fall in the routine of throwing a 2-1 changeup every time.
Out to right field. Peter Borges over toward the crowd and out of room. Thompson now last 17 innings has allowed 3 earned runs. Came in with an ERA of 1.93 for tonight in his last 2 starts. Opposition, and this is one of the big telling numbers. The opposition was hitting .215 against him in the last 2 games compared to .289 in the previous games. The other part of it too is he's just not walking guys consistently like he was early on.
Well, probably with the nerves, the new windup, some confidence.
And speaking of the windup, Bob McClure did say that he would prefer Thompson to be back over the top. You know, what he's doing right now, they did this because he obviously was struggling, but he would prefer him to be over the top. He said he thinks it leads to less arm problems. That's his theory when a guy is over the top with his hands like he used to be. But he said this has definitely slowed him down before he comes to the plate. Jason Worth hits it out toward second base, excuse me. Cesar Hernandez puts it away. And that brings us to our Geico quote of the day. Jake Thompson on the chance of being shut down. I understand their plan. That's not saying that I won't put up a fight in it. I understand what they're doing. I understand the long-term goals, and whatever is best for this organization, I'm going to do. Pete said he and Bob have talked about it, and they don't really, at least right now, have any plans to shut him down. They did say it could change, but I think if he had struggled 2 starts ago, he was going to be shut down.
Yep.
And Daniel Murphy's hit by a pitch. After Odubel Herrera was hit by a breaking ball, Murphy is hit by a fastball. So he'll go to first. A 1-out base runner.
See, it's four-seam fastball.
Yeah, that hit him in a tough spot, a very bony spot. He's walking it off right now with Dusty Baker and the Athletic trade. You can see it already mark up on him. Athletic trader for the Nationals been pretty busy the last couple of days. Murphy will stay in. The most popular way to follow Phillies baseball is with MLB.com at bat, the #1 app for live baseball. Enjoy live look-ins, highlights, game day scores, StatCast, live radio broadcasts, and more. Get MLB.com at bat on your favorite devices now. A runner at first base after the hit batter. Bryce Harper struck out looking his first time up. A new at bat and a new bat for Bryce Harper. Fouls that one. It's 0-2.
Going back to talking about Thompson's innings, he's in 166 innings this year. Signed in 2012.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be a surprise if they shut him down. Another foul ball off the foot. And it remains 1 ball, 2 strikes to Bryce Harper.
That number 34 shin guard right now was Bryce Harper's best friend, because he's hit that thing twice solidly. I asked if I could put number 12 on my elbow guard. They laughed at me.
Hey, Jose Lobaton had JL on his arm warmer last night. Bet you if you ask now, Matt, you can get it. There's Lobaton.
Now, I also had the elbow guard that McGuire used to wear, and I always say, "Can I get the McGuire pad?" They said yes. And when he retired, I said, "Can I get the Stairs pad?" No, it's still McGuire.
It's still McGuire.
Same with the Franklin batting gloves. I'll take the Franklin gloves that McGuire used to use.
Outside, 2-2. He tried to back that one up. 2 balls, 2 strikes to Harper. Murphy going back in the first. We said that arm's already bruised up. You can see it. A little discoloration. Harper lifts it in the air down the right field line into foul territory is Cesar Hernandez, and he makes the catch. 2 outs. On the Toyota Major League scoreboard, an update in the game between Boston and Toronto. It's 4-0 Red Sox. Dustin Pedroia, an RBI single. That is a game of importance because the Red Sox have now taken over first place in the American League East. They're a game up over Toronto and 2 games up over Baltimore. Yankees are only 4 games back. Boy, what a race that's going to be the last few weeks of the season. Look at the standings. Look how tight it is. Rendon to center field. Odubel Herrera going back. This one's well struck, and it is off the top of the wall. Murphy's around third. He's going to score. It's an RBI double for Rendon. Well, that ball jumped off his bat. And we're tied up at 1.
Yeah, when Rendon first hit that ball, I thought it was a home run by watching his reaction after he hits it. He knows he hits it well. Then it goes the little pose and then the jog. Great job by Peter Borges coming over to back up.
Yeah, to make sure that he stayed at second base. Ramos struck out his first time up. Only 2 hits now given up by Jake Thompson. Major League scoreboard, or minor league scoreboard, Lakewood is on top of Hagerstown 3-1. Wilson Garcia a 2-run double. Lakewood has a 1-0 lead over the Suns. It's one of the shorter drives that Lakewood has in the South Atlantic League, having to go to Hagerstown. Ramos scalds one into the seats over the tarp on the right field line. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Comes inside with a changeup, 3-2. And Zimmerman is on deck for the Nationals. Got him. Threw him another changeup. This one was down and away, and he gets Ramos for the second time. Rendon, though, ties it up with an opposite field double. We're even at 1 as we go to the top of the 5th. 16th. It's Welcome Back College Week at Citizens Bank Park. A $17 package includes upper level ticket, $12 in concessions credits, plus half-price sodas, hot dogs, and pretzels at any South Philadelphia market stand throughout the ballpark. Order your tickets now by going to Phillies.com/college. That is a heck of a bargain. Those guys are long out of college, but they would take advantage of it if given the opportunity.
Yep.
Who wouldn't?
And he brought his gloves.
He has the old school Phillies hat on too. The one with the mesh back. Gentleman with his glove. That's old school. Thompson takes low. 1 ball, 1 strike. In the air to right field. That's well hit. Harper going back. It's over his head, and it's off the top of the wall. And Thompson hustling to second is there sliding. How about that power?
That ball's crushed. I mean, Bryce Harper doesn't play very deep versus anyone. But when you turn and run like a little leaguer, like you lost the ball between your legs, you throw the hat and the glove after it. I mean, this is a great swing. Look at the power. Head down. Fastball's up in the zone. That's how close this comes to hit.
That's almost out of the ballpark.
A couple feet. Bryce played it really nice off the wall.
Well, that's his first extra base hit. And now it brings Cesar Hernandez up in a 1-1 game.
And I would say in a bunt situation.
Rendon thinks so. He's in on the grass at third. Ground ball right side. That'll get Thompson over to third. Murphy gave it a peek. There's no Chase Utley to make that play. So runner at third and 1 out. And Aaron Altair is going to come up and pinch hit for Odubel Herrera. I heard the whistle, Matt. I knew something was up. So Odubel getting that ball off the knee. Must have been a little worse than they first thought. He did hustle around the third base bag and scored. So Maddox out with a scouting report. Looks like Tanner Roark's got it under control. Looks like they're going to play the infield halfway with Thompson at third. Roark working from the windup. Some pitchers will do this. Not many do it, but some will do it. Whatever they think they're more comfortable with.
That's where they've been pitching. Altair yesterday, first 2 pitches. Underneath the hands, sliders low and away.
Aaron hitting .213 this season, 4 homers and 19 runs batted in. Continue to pitch him in. Why so many signs with nobody at second base?
Well, he shook off the first 4, but he went back to the second sign. He put it down, so just have the hitters thinking. Slider away.
In the dirt, 3-2. Good play by Ramos.
Best play I've seen Ramos make this year, moving to his right or left.
He is more squared off.
He usually tries to catch it. See, he gets up a little higher. Good move. Good movement.
Swing and a miss. Altair strikes out. 7 strikeouts for Tanner Roark.
Scenario right here, Altair kind of ties himself up. Just can't get. He's not swinging over top of it. Well, he is. Sorry, but the barrel of the bat's not over top of the baseball. So he's casting a little bit. Plus that ball was in a little bit off the plate. But all it takes is one time to get a knock, and they won't go in there anymore.
Yeah, they're kind of doing the same thing to Blanco tonight too, whether it be with fastballs or with breaking pitches. Jake Thompson led off the inning with a double, was moved over to third base on a ground out by Cesar Hernandez. And then Altair pinch hitting for Odubel Herrera struck out. Thompson still over third.
That one hurt.
Yes, it did. Brought the man to his knees.
I'm afraid there's not much of a trainer can do right now.
Nope. Ball bounced up, hit him right in the cup. Right past the glove. Well, he's just going to need a minute. A lot of visits tonight from the athletic trainer.
That one hurt. Didn't that like the Little League? Didn't that have like the chest protector that had the long piece in the front?
Yep. Old pictures of Yogi Berra's wearing a long piece in the front. Speed pitch, 3-1, 3-2.
I'll tell you this story really quick. BP catches in Japan, they'd have a little stool, and when they sit down on the stool, they had a piece of wood that sat in front of them, which protected them. I mean, it was like a high chair, a reverse high chair.
Ground ball foul, and it remains 3-2. They had the piece of wood in front of them, plus their equipment on.
Yes. So the wood was only
the height
that
it would take to protect them. Rendon will give this a run. It's out of play though into the first couple rows. He did a nice job letting that ball hit the seat and then picking it up.
If Whitey doesn't make contact with that one might hit him right square in the chest.
Well, this is an 8-pitch at bat. That was a fastball. Or was that a slider? So it was the slider the last time that hit him in the knee. And he swung over top. Inside, ball 4. This time he didn't swing. The Phils have first and third for Ryan Howard. Phillies fantasy camp is open for men and women aged 30 or older. It's from January 18th to the 22nd of next year in Clearwater, Florida. You get a chance to play at Bright House Field in a game against the Legends. Plus, you get a personalized Phillies uniform with your favorite number on it and so much more. Call 610-520-3400 or check out Phillies.com for more information. Ryan Howard tonight is 1 for 2. Pitch count's getting up there for Roark. 90 pitches with 2 outs here in the 5th. That's a pitcher's pitch right there. 1 ball, 1 strike. 91, I should say, on the inside part of the plate. Wants to work that inside part of the plate. I love when pitchers do that, though, Matt. I just think that pitching in is way more effective than pitching toward the outside part of the plate.
Just ties you up. Fastball's inside. You have to be perfect with your swing.
Update from the Eastern League postseason. Reading is now up 7-1 over Trenton. Jorge Alfaro has 2 home runs. Reminder that Game 4 will be tomorrow at First Energy Stadium. Rhys Hoskins has also hit 1. Runners on first and third. Again, the 2-2 pitch to Ryan Howard. And he pulls that one right into the shift. Murphy backpedals. And that'll do it for the Phillies. They get the leadoff double by the pitcher, but do not score. They lead 2. We'll lead for the bottom of the 5th. We're all tied up at 1. citizen. Well, the Phillies have announced their Paul Owens Award winners, and they have co-offensive players of the year, Dylan Cousins and Rhys Hoskins. Look at the numbers. It's tough to choose one over the other. And Ben Lively, 18-5 with a 2.69 ERA. Congratulations to all three. We'll see them at the ballpark sometime in the next couple of weeks. Peter Borges moves from right field to center field. And Aaron Altair stays into play right. Jake Thompson just warming up now.
I mean, really, how can you pick either or for the offensive numbers they had?
I wondered about it. You know, I guess you could have just picked Cousins because he set the Reading record for homers, but, you know, Hoskins tied it. I'm with you. I think it's good to honor both. I mean, it's not too often that an organization has two guys with that many home runs. Two guys with 78 home runs. And how about Lively? 18 wins. Ryan Zimmerman will lead it off in a 1-1 game here in the home fifth. Against Jake Thompson, who's been very good again tonight.
I would assume Lively will be shut down after the playoffs.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that's what the plan is. Breaking ball that didn't come all the way back. Actually, that was a curveball. I think that may have been the first curve he's thrown tonight. He tried to throw a lot of curves his first 4 starts, and it just wasn't working.
Ben Lively's at 170 innings going into the playoffs. Good location. It's a nice look cut to the fastball.
Well, from a comparison standpoint, Thompson's done it with less pitches so far tonight. Second time he's gone 3-2 to Ryan Zimmerman, who grounded out sharply his first time up.
That's the part of home plate that he hasn't had control of tonight, the inside part of the right-handers. When he misses, he's missing way into the right-handers. But that low and away has been pretty good.
Back toward the middle. Galvis makes a sliding grab and gets to his feet and throws to first in time. One of the keys for Matt Stairs today was play good defense or capitalize on it. And right there is solid defense from Freddie Galvis.
Well, it's back-to-back at-bats by Ryan Zimmerman. Getting snake bitten by good defense. First time Blanco showing his range to his right. This time Freddie Galvis gets a tremendous jump. Seems like they say this at least once a week. Coming up showing that strong arm, but it's all about the first step. Look how quick he got up and threw a strike.
Well, his fielding percentage is at .989, a couple of percentage points ahead of Jordy Mercer. You know, that's like a valley, 2 percentage points. Brendan Crawford is fourth with a .980 fielding percentage. Some still think he is the best defensive shortstop in the National League. He's just had a ton of errors since the All-Star break. But Galvis has been stellar. Just 1 error since the All-Star break. 0-1 pitch to Espinosa.
You know, and that best defense goes back towards what we talked about yesterday, the MVP players. You know, guys with WAR, guys with defensive WAR, showing better range. Not a lot of players, not a lot of shortstops will make that play that Freddie just made. Bouncing.
outside. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Espinosa.
Quick feet right here at 92-mile-an-hour cutter. Last thing you want to do, hit someone 0-2.
And a strike 3 called. He threw him a changeup, and Espinosa wasn't looking for it. 2 outs here in the 5th. 5 strikeouts for Jake Thompson. Murph, one of the reasons why the Nationals have been so dominant this year is because they've really been good at home and they've been good on the road.
It's true, and Phillies, though, have played the Nationals well here at Nationals Park, 4-3 in their 7 games against the Nats, which when you compare it to what they've done at Citizens Bank Park, Phillies just 1-8 against this Nationals team at Citizens Bank Park, and it's kind of indicative of the way things have gone at home for the Phils this year. Get this, the Phillies have scored 70 more runs on the road this season than they have at home, and that's only in 2 more ball games. 70 more runs, averaging more than a run more per game on the road than at home as well. The batting average 250 compared to 222 back at Citizens Bank Park. Guys, I really think when this season is all said and done, when we look back at the 2016 season, it'll be one of those things that we say, why was that? It's a real head scratcher why this team was not able to play better on the road. They still have 12 games to go at Citizens Bank Park. They'll hope to turn things around in those final 12, but it really has been a strange set of circumstances for the Phils at home.
I agree with that. I was just thinking about that today and thinking about if the Phillies were 5 games better, let's say, at Citizens Bank Park in the win column, you know, what that would look like. And it would look, it would make the season look a lot better. But it is surprising. I think we've all talked about that, how surprising their numbers are. Tanner Roark just singled with 2 outs. And now Trey Turner's up.
Well, there's a lot of theory, but I think there's no one answer.
I agree. Turner hits it sharply on 1 hop. Cesar looked at second, but throws to first. And they get the final out. No runs, 1 hit, and 1 man left. We have played 5. Both pitchers have done a nice job tonight. We're tied up at 1. One of the most productive seasons of his career. As usual, Freddie is defending his position on the diamond at a top-notch level. The 26-year-old is first among NL shortstops in starts and fielding percentage. But that's just the glove. At the plate, Galvis has reached career best marks in doubles, home runs, extra base hits, RBIs, and steals. In the field and at the plate, he has elevated his game, and it's brought to you by Independence Blue Cross. Live fearless. Well, tonight that guy has an RBI, and he also has made a heck of a play defensively at shortstop, and he's part of the reason why we're tied at 1 as we go to the top half of the 6th inning. It'll be Cameron Rupp, Freddie, and then Peter Borges against Tanner Roark, who was on base when the inning came to a close.
going back and talking about the numbers that Murph was explaining about the home and road record. We have 17 triples at home in a smaller ballpark and 15 on the road.
How about the home run splits?
67 home, 72 road.
Yeah, I don't think there's really any true explanation.
No, there's not. Because if there was, someone would be awful smart, making a lot of money, telling every team what they're doing wrong at home.
Of course, there's bullpen action for the Nationals. Played Trinan, warming up in the pen. 1 ball, 1 strike to Rupp. 98 pitches so far.
Cameron's last 2 at-bats yesterday hit the ball well up the middle. Today he's back in that pull-off mode. It's all about the front toe.
But you liked what you saw in BP today, right? Weren't you watching BP? And you?
I did. No, he had a good swing. But again, it's going to carry it over to a game and slow the game down.
That one's out toward left center field. That's going to drop for a base hit. Jason Worth will cut it off in the alley, and Rupp will stop at first. So leadoff single here in the top of the 6th inning. Now he's thrown 101 pitches.
See, that was a better swing. It's a more controlled swing. Breaking ball, he recognized the pitch and then went after it. He didn't go after it, then recognize the pitch. By then, it's too late. That's what he did his first 2 at-bats.
Pretty shaking on his hand there?
A little bit.
Ground ball right side. That might be 2. Murphy flips quickly to second for 1. And they're able to turn the 4-6-3 double play.
Well, they mentioned earlier about all the double plays Roark gets. It's pitches like that when you try to pull it, they get you in trouble.
Well, now Borges singled his last time up. Peter's had a nice road trip. He's 6 for 17 on the road trip. So he's kind of figured some things out again. 1 ball and 1 strike. Be nice to finish strong. He's been a big asset for the Phils. I mean, you push aside that first month and maybe part of August when he was banged up.
Good to throw along his tremendous defense in the outfield.
1 ball, 2 strikes to him. And he's down on strikes, and that wraps up the 6th inning and probably the outing for Tanner Roark. No runs, 1 hit, and nobody left. Jason Worth is due to lead it off in the bottom of the 6th inning when we return. Hurry to your local Del Val Honda dealer. Visit DelValHondaDealers.com. By Xfinity. Xfinity X1 will change the way you experience TV. And by WB Mason. You can't go wrong when you buy right. Last of the 6th inning. We're tied up at 1. Jason Worth is due to lead it off for the Nationals. Tanner Roark coming off the mound. He did not want to leave this game. Look, he's looking for Dusty Baker. Not coming out. But he's probably coming out. Congratulated by all 50 Washington Nationals in the dugout. 38.
Well, I mean, coaching staff, trainers, those guys.
All 50. Cesar Hernandez catches that one out of the air.
Now, the one time Jason Worth decides he wanted to attack, he gets a slider.
Well, this is before the ball game. We wanted to see how many guys. Look at all the pitchers they have. It's as if they're on the backfields in Vieira, getting ready for a spring training workout. Staying hydrated with some yogurt of some sort.
Coach is in there somewhere.
Somewhere. They're outnumbered. A ball and no strikes to Daniel Murphy. Down the right field line out of play, and it's 1-1. Murphy's got that arm wrapped up now for getting hit by the pitch. There's really no protection to that. Sometimes those wraps help with some inflammation. So they say. Down the right field line, that'll be in for a base hit. Altair cuts it off. Murphy on his way to second, and the throw will not get there in time, so he will stand up with his 41st double of the year. Michael Marriott is up loosening in the pen. It's only 78 pitches for Thompson.
Good swing, nice easy swing. I thought Altair might have a chance, but I think right when you put the plant and throw, it kind of slips. Doesn't really get much on the throw.
So Harper is up. He's 0 for 2. He has struck out, and he's also fouled out. Grounds it foul over the tarp. No balls and 1 strike.
I mean, Jake would have to be pleased with that cutter. Because that was another one right there. In a good location. The good thing about a cutter is when you miss, you're going to miss well off the plate. So you really don't get hurt. To left-handers.
That one's pulled into right field, a base hit. Rounding third, heading for home is Murphy. The throw to the plate is offline. It'll be an RBI single for Bryce Harper. It's a 2-1 Washington lead. Boy, a good throw, and Murphy was going to be dead to rights at home plate. But it was just offline. Because as it was, Rupp caught it, and Murphy hadn't arrived at the plate. So an RBI single. So Harper's first at bat, he's got the pants up. You don't think this kid is superstitious? We've talked about his superstitions before. Second at bat, pants are down. Actually, that's this at bat, I should say. Spence are going to stay down for a while. Bob McClure coming out.
Let's get it in the air. Let's get the ball in the air. That's it. Get the ball in the air. Remember that bullet you hit to win the game?
2 runs on 5 hits allowed by Thompson. Gonna keep him in here, obviously. On the Toyota Major League scoreboard, the Mets lead Braves lead the Mets 2-0. Matt Kemp has hit a solo home run, his 29th of the year. Nationals' magic number to clinch the division over the Mets is 15. See what Pete's going to do here. Just a bit outside. Back on the same page. Time is called. Cameron Rupp asked for time. Larry Vanover went running away, pointing to Rupp. He wanted to make sure the blame, if there was going to be any blame, was going to be on the right person.
I'm going to keep an eye on Bryce at second base.
I would agree. He looks like he wants to go. Outside 2-0. Wilson Ramos is on deck. Still one out here in the bottom of the 6th inning. Nationals up 2-1 on the Harper single. Ball 4. Goes Pete Mackanin. That's going to be it for Thompson. So they're going to go get the right-hander and bring him in to replace Jake Thompson. So Thompson's going to be responsible for the runners on first and second. A pitching change here in the bottom of the 6th. Phillies trail at 2-1. And we'll be back with a new pitcher right after this here in D.C. Nationals record for career grand slams?
I would say he's been snake bitten by 2 defensive plays tonight. Ryan Zimmerman.
Ryan Zimmerman is correct. He has 5. Log back on to Phillies.com to find out if you're the winner of a Phillies prize pack. There is Ryan Zimmerman, who is up after Wilson Ramos. Jake Thompson is responsible for the 2 runners that are still on base. First 5 innings tonight, Thompson was right on the mark. He got the first out here in the 6th, but then a double, a single, and a walk has produced the lead for the Nationals. And a little bit of a predicament for Michael Marriott, who comes in with an ERA of 6.92. Ramos takes inside. Thompson strikes out, or struck out 5 tonight. Walked 1, hit 1. Both runs have been scored tonight by Daniel Murphy. Throw behind Harper at second. Swing and a miss, 1-2. That has been the pitch to get Ramos tonight. He has struck out twice. Thompson got him both times with something soft. And Marriott looks ahead with the slider, 1-2. Got him. Threw it again. He has struck out 3 times this evening.
4 straight. Did he strike out last night versus Denmark?
Yes, he did. And now Ryan Zimmerman, who has been robbed twice. Once by Blanco, once definitely by Galvis. Here's this breaking pitch.
Well, like you said, Tom, this has been a headache for Ramos. It's a nice tight slider right there. To the dot going in. Could never see that dot. People can pick that up. Edgar Martinez could read it like there's no tomorrow.
His eyes must be incredible because you see everything. I mean, you pick up things.
They used to have a machine brought into the major leagues, and that was a tennis ball to shoot tennis balls, and they would have red and I think it was red and yellow on the tennis balls, and there were numbers, and they'd shoot it 100 miles an hour. Guys could read the number and the color on the ball.
Marriott turns around because Harper was dancing a little bit.
By watching Zimmerman take that last pitch, looks like he's sitting off speed.
Popped him up. Rupp off with the mask. Has room. Inning over.
That was a good one. That's a good pop up.
That's a good pop up. Nationals do score a run, though, on the RBI single by Bryce Harper. They're up 2-1 as we go to the 7th. Time now for your Delaware Valley Honda dealers game summary. The Phillies trailing 2-1 as we go to the top of the 7th inning. Freddie Galvis has accounted for the only run for the Phils. Jake Thompson went 5 1/3, allowed 5 hits and 2 earned runs, 5 strikeouts. Tanner Roark is the pitcher of record right now on the winning side, as he went 6 innings, struck out 8 for the Nationals. So as we begin the 7th inning, Blake Treinen will be the new pitcher. 64th game for Treinen. First pitch to Tyler Goodell was up and in, 1 ball, no strikes.
Remember how yesterday I was talking about a heavy sinker or a heavy ball? This fella throws a heavy ball. It's a late movement, late sinker.
Sinker's up there, 2-0.
It's like when you hit it, it's like you're hitting a bowling ball.
Jimmy Paredes out in the on-deck circle with Colton Murray warming up in the pen. There's that bowling ball, 95. There's Colton. Back toward the middle. Treinen's got it. Ryan Zimmerman, I think, lost that ball in the lights for a moment. 1-3 on the put out and 1 out. And Paredes will come up to pinch hit. Nationals have had a solid bullpen despite the struggles that they had at times with Jonathan Papelbon as their closer. They've stabilized that with Mark Melancon. Now they've got sort of a who's who. Their bullpen, they might have to get their own bus. Paredes, 9 pinch hits this year. Nationals ERA from the pen 3.28, and that's even with the problems they had with Papelbon as their closer. Oh, 2, same spot.
You were mentioning about how many players are here. Their next road trip to go down to Miami, Atlanta, and Pittsburgh. Email came out today that the producer, executive producer, stats guy had to go commercial. Not enough seats on the plane.
Oh, man, really?
Yeah.
Guess you could get a bigger plane.
I think they have a bigger plane from here to Miami, but from Miami to Atlanta, Atlanta back here.
Yeah.
It's the something VIP. I'd boycott if our guys couldn't travel with us. Whew.
Down the left field line, Rendon on the run and just barely misses getting there. I honestly, and we could be way off of it, I can't remember a team in September having this many players.
I've never seen it.
To have 38 of your 40-man roster players on the big league roster, that's a lot. Down the left field line. Swing and a miss. Brady strikes out. 2 outs. And up to the top of the order for Cesar Hernandez. Cesar is 0 for 3. He has struck out looking and he's grounded out twice. Ball, no strikes. Phillies down by only 1 run here in the top of the 7th inning. They are among the best teams in baseball in 1-run games. One ball, 1 strike. Texas is 30-9 this year in 1-run games. That's tops in Major League Baseball. Phillies are second at 26-18. Giants also have 26 wins, but they're 26-24. And Detroit 25-15. Fastball 2-2.
So to go back real quick about the September call-ups, 2014 Texas Rangers had 40 guys in September.
Really? That's a lot
they
of
had
guys.
25 guys on the roster, 5 guys on the DL, 9 guys on the 60-day DL, so they called up 10 minor leaguers.
Over to first base and a fair ball. Nobody was moving. 3 unassisted. 1-2-3 go the Bills. Time to stretch. Bills trail the Nationals 2-1. We go to the bottom of the 7th. say. His media session yesterday was very revealing, as you would imagine. We move to the bottom of the 7th. Every time the Phillies retire the opposing team, 1, 2, 3. Comcast will make a contribution to Phillies charities. Phillies baseball is brought to you by Xfinity. Xfinity X1 will change the way you experience TV as Colton Murray takes over out on the mound for the Phils. 19th game in the big leagues for Colton. The ERA of 4.13. His job is to keep this at a 1-run game. We may also see Patrick Schuster in this inning. It depends in a lot of ways what the Nationals do as far as their pinch hitter goes, their next batter. Danny Espinosa will lead it off. Dakota Glover is warming up in the bullpen for the Nats. Espinosa takes high, 1 ball, no strikes. Ben Revere in the on-deck circle. Inside again, 3-0. For the Phillies, with a lot of the players that they have up on the big roster, it means that they don't always get a whole lot of work. So sometimes it's their side work that is an attempt to keep them sharp.
Yeah. Well, I think you said it right. The attempt. Totally different, not facing hitters.
Yeah, Colton Murray hasn't worked in a week. His last game was last Friday against the Atlanta Braves. That has been a strike all night. Larry Vanover has not deviated. Hit it to right field. That'll drop one hopper in front of Altair. Espinosa is aboard and leadoff single. Phillies have a digital ticket offer that is coming up for the game on Tuesday against the Pittsburgh Pirates. It's a special $10 digital ticket offer for the Scoreboard Porch. Tickets must be purchased through the free Ballpark app, the official app of Citizens Bank Park. The app is available for iOS and Android devices. For information, go to Phillies.com/ballpark offer. Ballpark app offer. So here is Ben Revere. I would think Ben's up there to bunt in this spot. Up 2-1. grounded foul, and it's 0-1. Espinosa goes back toward first.
If I recall correctly, Ben Revere was the greatest sacrificer.
He was not.
But he could bunt for a base hit.
He could. Strange, isn't it? I think everybody liked having Ben around, but there were some things that he did that were kind of odd. He'd make these unbelievable plays in center field, and then he would make a misplay on a routine fly ball. Always smiling, though. Runner goes, pitches slapped, foul. He would have had that base stolen. 0-2.
Hit and run.
Yep. I think it's safe to say that we all enjoyed having him around because he was always smiling.
I'll never forget the walk-off. I forget who hit it, but him coming down third base and doing the high step.
Yeah. You and I would have blown a hamstring.
You and I would have been pitch ran for.
Up and away, 1-2. Well, at least we know our limitations.
There you go.
Strikeout rate. Ben is strikes out once every 10.8 plate appearances. That's during his career. Well, here we go. May 28, 2014. Ryan Howard, 3-run home run.
Love it.
That was funny. Got him. High fastball at 95. Revere strikes out. And Trey Turner's coming up.
High fastball. Not very often you see Ben swing at those type of pitches.
I mentioned that he doesn't strike out all that often. Murray gets him there. So now Trey Turner, who is 0 for 3. Trying to keep Espinosa close over at first. He can steal a base. He has 9 steals. Been caught once.
Colton actually has pretty quick feet, but he has a huge windup to throw over to first base.
That ball is ripped deep down the left field line. It is gone. A 2-run home run for Trey Turner. His 7th home run of the year, and it's 4-1 Washington. You want to talk about some quick hands. Wow. It's Not a big fellow, but man, he got around on that one.
Well, I think you said it, Tom. He has very quick hands. Just fastball low and away. Ball's in off the plate. That's what you say. Throw the head to the baseball.
That's a shot. So the Nationals are up by 3, 4-1. And Jason Worth is the batter. Worth is 0 for 3. Turner has hit 6 straight. He has 7 home runs and 29 runs batted in a limited amount of time this year. Up and in, 1 ball, no strikes. Good-looking player. Give him a lot of credit for switching positions. And as he told us last week at Citizens Bank Park, I think I can play shortstop in the big leagues, but we have a shortstop. So would I prefer to play center field in the majors or shortstop in the minors? I prefer to play center field in the major leagues.
And he can hit, and he's a smart kid.
2 balls, 1 strike to Worth. 2-2. He got him. Pitch in the dirt. Cameron Rupp will tag Jason Worth. 2 strikeouts in the inning for Murray. And Daniel Murphy is coming up, but he will face Patrick Schuster as Pete Buchanan is out to the mound to take out Colton Murray. A pitching change here at Nationals Park. Phillies trail at 4-1. So lefty on lefty when we come back. 3-run lead for Washington. Derek Gunn, Reuben Frank, Ray Dittinger, and Brian Baldinger cover all the angles leading up to rookie Carson Wentz's debut and the Eagles' regular season opener versus the Browns. Don't miss the Saturday edition of Quick Slants tomorrow at 6 here on CSN. Nationals 4, Phillies 1. 2 outs here in the bottom of the 7th. Pitching change. Patrick Schuster, who went 2/3 of an inning and allowed a run against the Marlins the other day, is on to face Daniel Murphy. Pete wants to see more of this for Schuster, just to see if he can get lefties out if he brings them on just for, let's say, 1 or 2 batters at a time. Phillies have gone basically this entire year without a situational left-hander. Katie Buchanan, always one to help out. Ball girl brought in the jacket for Patrick Schuster. Matt, that's people helping people.
I was just gonna say.
No balls and 1 strike. One ball, 1 strike.
They always say there's something almost every game that you've never seen before. I don't think I've ever seen that before, where a ball girl comes down and gives the coat for the reliever to the manager.
Danny Murphy hit by a pitch again. It's not what he wanted. He's been hit by a pitch twice tonight. And Bryce Harper will be the batter.
Slider that didn't slide. They hit him at the knee, just below the knee.
Outside. Harper had an RBI singles last time up. I think right now is the difference in this ball game. It broke a 1-1 tie. He is 1 for 3 in the game. Outside again, 2-0. In the South Atlantic League, Lakewood has defeated Hagerstown 5-2, so they've won the series 2-0. Herman in the bullpen. Little tapper to the right side. Ryan Howard committed, flips to Schuster, and Harper is out. The side is retired. The Nationals get 2 on the 2-run home run by Trey Turner. It is a bullet, or it was a bullet, and he knew it as long as it stayed fair, and he could tell it wasn't hooking. So it's 4-1 Nationals as we go to the top of the 8th inning. chances. By Jefferson, call 800-JEFF now or visit jefferson.edu. And by Chevrolet, visit your local dealer at chevydealer.com. 4-1 Nationals on top. We go to the top of the 8th inning. And then we revert back to a better time in this ball game. It's our Hyundai defensive play of the game.
Comes back in the 5th inning. Ryan Zimmerman thinks he has a base hit up the middle, but Freddie Galvis showing very good range, very good quickness, accuracy, strength, all the above for a very nice play. That is your Hyundai defensive play of the game, brought to you by local Hyundai dealers.
Coda Glover is the new pitcher for the Nationals as we move to the top of the 8th inning. 4-1, Washington on top. Down in Atlanta, the Braves lead the Mets 4-2. If you're wondering about magic numbers, Nationals' magic number to clinch the division at 15 at the start of play tonight. And Aaron Altair is hit by a pitch. It's becoming an epidemic. So the Phillies have a base runner down by 3. And Andres Blanco is coming up. Blanco is 0 for 2. He was also hit by a pitch on one of his strikeouts earlier.
Two-seam fastball. You see the rotation. There they are.
Outside, 1-0. Nationals have another right-hander starting to warm up in the bullpen.
You could probably say that another 9 times.
Yeah. That is Melancon. You think it takes him a long time to warm up, or are they?
He's not even thrown, is he?
Oh no, is he just shadow through? Yeah, he's just shadow.
Yeah.
He goes through the whole thing, even though he's not throwing. Two and 1 to Blanco. You know, he used to do that all the time. That was Jose Contreras, but he did it with a towel.
Yeah. They say you do it with the towel, and at the very end you hear that snap. That means you're getting through it and getting an extension.
Blanco a little late, 2-2. Ryan Howard is on deck, hoping that Blanco gets on and he could be the tying run. Trying to check his swing. Did he go? No, says the third base umpire. Ball 4. And that puts runners on first and second. 2 runners on. Time to get caught up on what's going on around Major League Baseball. Here's Greg Murphy. Murph?
All right, thanks, Tom. It is our greater coverage of baseball presented by T-Mobile, and the much-anticipated return of Clayton Kershaw came and went tonight in Miami. He pitched 3 innings, 66 pitches, allowed 2 runs in that game. According to several reports, his velocity very good, 93, right about where he always has been, but he had trouble with his command. As we told you last night, Dodgers hoping he can get 3 more starts before the postseason to kind of get him dialed in. Jose Fernandez in that game, guys, for Miami, 14 strikeouts in that game. He was very, very good. And how about the scene up in Toronto tonight as the Boston Red Sox came to town and the Toronto Blue Jays honored David Ortiz. It's his final trip into Toronto. Of course, he's retiring. He is the all-time leader for visiting players in home runs, RBIs, extra base hits, and doubles there in Toronto. They honored him with a video before the game, and they also presented him with 2 huge winter parkas. Why not? They're in Canada. Give them the park. I'm sure they'll come in handy when David goes back to the Dominican.
That's
if he's
right.
Back there anytime soon. But they honored him. It was a very nice moment, and got a nice round of applause right there from the Blue Jays fans as well.
Matt, we were watching it in between innings. You have one of those parkas?
Well, we call it a Canada Goose jacket.
A goose
yes, I
jacket.
have one. And they're a little too warm for the winter.
Does look like it would be really warm.
It's really hot. And also, the Blue Jays donated $10,000 to David Ortiz's children's fund as well.
Yeah, there've been a number of teams that have done that. That's part of what they've done to honor him. He's hasn't gotten the same thing that Jeter got on his farewell tour, but there's been some nice things that have been done. San Diego gave him a surfboard that he can use in the Dominican, Murph, with that big jacket, the big puffy coat.
Didn't Texas give him cowboy boots?
Yeah,
I think they did.
Now, if you could get me one of those jackets, that'd be great.
Big puffy coat.
Yeah.
Howard fouls it away.
When you announce it's your last year and you go on tour, I'll do it for you.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you.
I'll see you in about 30 years.
Yeah, God willing.
Howard hits that one sharply, and Murphy stumbles, does not have a play at second, but is able to get Howard at first. Ryan's hit the ball hard 3 times tonight. Actually, hit the ball hard all 4 times tonight.
And that's the second time back-to-back at bats where Ryan hit the ball hard to Murphy and ate him up at second base. I thought he was still going to flip to second base just because he hit the ball so hard and Ryan doesn't run very quick. Even if you're safe at second base, you still roll and throw to first base to get the out.
Well, the Phillies have runners on second and third with 1 out. A base hit should score 2. Check swing by Rupp. Two and 0. That ball is hit well out toward left. Jason Worth is going to look and watch it go. It is a long home run by Cameron Rupp that's just tied this ball game up. Wow, was that a shot? His 15th home run of the year. It's a 4-4 ball game.
Well, that ball came in a sinker at 97, and the scoreboard said it left at 105. You better double that. That ball was covered. See the rotation, side rotation, two-seamer, right in the happy zone, head down. Very good swing. Look how far that thing went.
That was a shot. You know, when Jason first went back, I thought maybe he was looking to size it up. There was no sizing that up. You just have to sit back and be impressed. On the Miami Marlins, all fans 15 and older, compliments of hers will receive the Phillies Aviator hat. Tickets can be purchased by going to Phillies.com. It's all part of a 3-game series against the Marlins, 2 night games and a day game.
Hey Murph, I can get you one of those.
They go good with that big coat.
I have connections there.
Well, thank you very much.
Zabchitsky in his 7th ball game. He has not allowed a run yet. In 6 2/3, and he is on to face Freddie Galvis, who will bat right-handed.
How big's that bobble at second base by Murphy now?
Huge. Galvis takes a strike, 0-1. Out in front, 0-2. Freddie has been better against lefties. That includes a little pop, too. Ground ball back towards shortstop. Espinosa has it. Two gone. Peter Borges will be the batter, and Dusty Baker is headed on out. One lefty in, and now a righty. This will happen quite often as this game moves on. You're going to see a whole host of pitchers used by Dusty Baker. Peter Borges will face the right-hander when we return to Nationals Park in a 4-4 game.
Came off a 97-mile-an-hour Glover sinker. Big man Cameron up crushes this ball deep to left field. 3-run shot. Gotta love those 3-run shots. Ties the game up at 4-4. That is your WB Mason delivery of the game.
Yeah, it also won $100 for Ron Mauer in the McDonald's home run jackpot. So congratulations to Ron. Here's Sean Kelly, 58th game for Kelly. He is a strikeout guy, 71 Ks. Peter Borges takes low and away, 1 ball and no strikes. Borges 1 for 3 in the game.
Kelly is a strikeout guy, but he throws two pitches, a fastball, 91-94. You see Reddy right there, 113-5.
Alfaro 4 hits, 2 home runs.
Fastball slider. You think a guy with all those strikeouts would have a split finger or like a wipeout? His wipeout pitch must be a slider.
Looks like the Phillies are going to use Frank Herman to pitch the bottom of the 8th inning. Rendon, Ramos, and Zimmerman are due up for Washington. And he got him. 92 on that fastball. And that'll wrap up the 8th inning. But the Phillies with some noise in the 8th inning. The 3-run home run by Cameron Rupp has tied it at 4 as we go to the bottom of the 8th. Sunday, October 2nd, when the Phillies wrap up the season, it'll be Fan Appreciation Day at Citizens Bank Park, and all fans will receive that fathead right there. It features the 2017 Phillies schedule. Tickets can be purchased by going to Phillies.com. You can check out the rest of the home schedule for Citizens Bank Park by going to Phillies.com. Frank Herman will take over with a 10.29 ERA. Herman has allowed 3 home runs so far. He'll face Anthony Rendon to start it off. Here in the home 8th inning, each team with 4 runs, each team with 7 hits. And Rendon takes a strike. By the way, we mentioned that Redding won tonight. Kudos goes out to Enery Garcia, starting pitcher for the Reading Titans, who was with Clearwater and tonight was making his Double-A debut. They needed somebody to really step up, and he certainly did. He did, but the offense did as well. outside. 1-2. Sharply foul. Another one fouled up the third base line. Phillies are probably tonight without Ramos, Neris, and Gomez. That's what Pete said today. He said, yeah, I think I'm going to have to back off those guys for a couple of days. He thought Neris might even be more than 1 day off. Gomez has worked 5 of the last 7. That one's looped out to left, and it is going to drop for a base hit. Rendon's aboard. Leadoff single here in the bottom of the 8th inning. And Wilson Ramos is coming up. Rendon is now 2 for 3 tonight. Ramos has struck out 3 times. Herman does not have the same breaking pitch that the others had, Thompson and Marriott. But that's how they've gotten him tonight. To the right side. That might be 2. Hernandez to second for 1. That was the tough part because Ramos does not run all that well. A 4-6-3 double play, 2 outs.
Great turn, good pitch. Good fastball low and away. Ramos hits his ball straight down. Cesar didn't try to rush that throw to second base. Cesar knowing that Ramos doesn't run real well. Gives him a nice feed. Freddie, of course, take it from there.
Well, Ryan Zimmerman is now the batter. He's 0 for 3 tonight. Popped out to Rupp his last time up. 1 ball and no strikes. In the Phillies half of the 9th inning, Tyler Goodell is due to lead it off in the pitcher's spot before we reach the top of the order. There's Melanson, who will be used in the 9th inning. Swing and a miss, 2-2. Pretty good sink right there on that 93-mile-an-hour fastball. Got him. 94-mile-an-hour fastball. And the Nationals are down quietly in their half of the 8th inning. So we go to the 9th, the Phils, and the Nats tied up at 4. We'll see if the Phils can get something going when we get back. performances of Jake Thompson and Tanner Roark on Pure Auto Insurance presents Phillies postgame live following the final out here on CSN. Top of the ninth inning, and the Nationals will go to their closer, Mark Melancon, which is normally what they do if there's a tie game in your home ballpark. You bring in your closer. I guess they have plenty of pitchers that they don't have to worry about the fact that they burned Zawczynski and Kelly, two important pieces of their bullpen, on just one batter apiece. You and I were commenting that they probably could have just left Kelly in there for another inning and possibly save Melancon if the game goes extra innings.
Yeah, it was interesting to see. I thought, we had that discussion. He only 5 pitches, 6 pitches. I just found it interesting that Melancon, he came in. There was a minute left on the clock. When they opened the door and started running in, they reset it to 2 minutes.
Yeah, as we've talked about, the whole clock, the concept is good if they want to speed up the game, but if it's not reinforced or not enforced.
He's at 3 minutes now.
Right. And now a meeting on the mound. Tyler Goodell will lead it off. Frank Herman is in the on-deck circle. Goodell swinging a foul tip, 0-1. Outside, 1 ball, 1 strike. Same pitch, 2-1.
Same pitch, same take. A little jumpy.
Tyler tonight is 0 for 2. He walked his first time out. He's now 5 for his last 57. That's the struggles that he has had. Hitting a .184. And he's down on strikes. And Herman will bat. That's the state of the Phillies bullpen right now. David Hernandez is available, so is Severino Gonzalez. Phillies certainly have guys on the bench that they could utilize. Herman, his career is 0 for 1. Let's see if he can pick up his first major league hit. Why not? Foul ball. Wilson Ramos got nailed again.
Same spot?
I believe same spot.
No, foot.
Yeah. Inside of that right foot. Boy, he's really banged up. Well, he is ready to go. He might be in a little bit of pain.
Yeah, I might be going out on a limb, but pretty good chance he's not playing tomorrow.
Yeah, I would concur. No balls and 2 strikes to Herman. And he is down looking. 2 outs. Well, playing the role of long man tonight looks like it is Frank Herman. I mentioned that the Phillies definitely have bats that they could utilize. Tommy Joseph, Manuel Burris, Darren Ruff, and they had arms to utilize as well. But they decide to have Herman bat here in the 9th. Cesar Hernandez fouls one behind Juan Samuel, and it's 0-1. Cesar's 0 for 4 in this ballgame. He actually had a good series against the Marlins. First 2 games here, though, not gone as well. He's 1 for 8. Ground ball foul. 0-2. Two balls and 2 strikes to Cesar. Aaron Altair waits on deck. Ronaldo Lopez warming up in the pen. Pitcher spot is due up second for the Nationals in the home 9th. Cesar stays alive. He just got a piece of it. Here's Altair, who came in for Odubel Herrera, who has a contusion on his knee after being hit by a pitch. 3 balls, 2 strikes to Cesar Hernandez. Again, he stays alive. Another foul ball. Ball 4, so Cesar draws the walk with 2 men down. It gives Altair a chance to bat here. Aaron was hit by a pitch his last time up. Tommy Joseph, Darren Ruff, both taking some swings in the cage, keep themselves loose. Aaron is 0 for 1. Melanson will try to keep Cesar close at first. You can run on Melanson. Problem is that the guy behind the plate has a good arm. They're going to throw over again. He doesn't often have base runners, though. There's David Hernandez warming up in the pen. Hernandez warming up. In case the Phillies get a lead, maybe they bring him in to close it up.
Well, if Cesar decides to steal, he needs to get a good jump. Melanson's changed. Actually, he's changed the stance. There's delivery. It's a lot quicker than it used to be.
One. Just a tad outside. Andres Blanco waits on deck. And there's a liner to left field. Jason Worth comes on, makes the catch. Aaron Altair hit it right on the nose, but the inning is over. No runs, no hits, one man left for the Phils. Danny Espinosa will lead it off when we come back in the bottom of the ninth. Phillies took a 1-0 lead in the fourth. You see the Nationals tied it, took the lead in the sixth, added to it in the seventh, and then the Phillies tied it in the eighth. So Frank Herman, who by our estimations is one of just 3 pitchers left in the Phillies bullpen because he did not want to use a few guys. Gomez to the left, Ramos
I would say check mark. Yes.
Yes. David Hernandez, who was thrown before. So Herman will face Espinosa. Espinosa, so far today, is 2 for 3. Couple singles, a run scored. Clint Robinson's out of the on-deck circle. Take it outside. 1 ball, no strikes. There's Robinson. Frank Herman grew up in North Jersey in Rutherford. In fact, I found out last week that my cousins coached Frank Herman and his brother during their time in North Jersey. Went to a prep school called Montclair Kimberly Academy, and then went on to Harvard. One ball, no strikes. The ball's popped up, third base side. Andres Blanco in foul territory is under it. And puts it away. 1 out. Frank has a brother, Max, who also was a very good pitcher on the amateur level. In fact, some folks said that he threw harder than Frank did when Frank was younger. On the floor, Pete Buchanan. Outside, 1 ball and no strikes. In fact, Frank's brother Max played not only at URI, Rhode Island, but then eventually went to Rutgers University. So a baseball family. Out to center field, that's well hit. Robinson sends Peter Borges out to the track, and Borges runs it down. So 2 outs, and Trey Turner's coming up. A lot of room out there in center field here at Nationals Park.
It's a lot of room and not much of an area to miss on your barrel. That 2-seamer just went enough away from the good spot of the barrel.
Trey Turner, who hit the home run earlier, that added to the Nationals' lead. One ball, no strikes. 1-1. Swing and a miss, 1-2. Boy, he's had a pretty good fastball here tonight.
Yeah, his 4-seamer up in the zone has a little extra kick to it. Down in the zone, pretty good movement.
He's been able to get 5 outs with just 20 pitches. Opposite way, out of play. Frank Herman's a big guy. If you meet him and talk to him, he's got big hands. And he was athletic when he was younger, 1,000-point scorer when he was in high school, but chose baseball when he went on to play in college. We've seen a lot of Ivy League players sort of make their mark the last handful of years. A lot of guys from Princeton. We mentioned he's from Harvard. Remains 1-2.
Two of the last three pitches have been sliders, and he's got away with both of them. Both up in the zone. Almost think set off the plate a little bit, give him a lower target. See, he wants it down.
Popped up. Foul territory. Blanco is over, and it's out of play. Yeah, he wanted it down. It wasn't down again.
Yeah, it's just a matter of getting your hands on top of that baseball. He's getting underneath a little bit, and the slider's almost becoming a... See, I was just not getting underneath it. It's coming out, spinning.
Cameron wants it again. This time it was down. That was a little better, wasn't it?
It was better.
Fastball up. Got to make sure it's up. Out to center field. That's well hit. Going back on it is Borges to the wall, and this ball game is over. Trey Turner, the rookie, has hit a solo home run, his second homer of the night. The Nationals win it in the bottom of the ninth inning by a final of 5-4. Told you, he is not a big kid at all, but boy, he has some pop. And he is our Chevrolet player of the game with his 2 home runs. One was longer than the other. The one down the left field line was close to 400 feet. The one to straightaway center field, the game winner, was well over 400 feet.
Well, you said he wanted the fastball up.
Ooh.
That was right down the middle. Got away with a few sliders earlier, but Turner got extended on that one. Didn't miss that fastball down the middle. So the reaction of the bench start to come over. Back wall.
That is a long home run. So the Nationals celebrate. Their magic number to clinch the East is at 14 thanks to today's win. They win it 5-4. And they take game 2 of this 4-game series. Ninth inning victory for Washington. A 1-run win. We're back to wrap it up right after this.